Hello, and thank you for checking in. Today I want to talk to you about the thing that everyone who looks like me wants to talk about. Video games. Dear God, I quit my job to do this. Today I'll be speaking with you about the 2009 video game Demon's Souls. I'm going to be only talking about the PlayStation 3 version of the game because I am not going to buy a PS5. Every console I'm currently in ownership of was given to me for free, and I'm not going to break that streak. As a seasoned video game experiencer, I have played both the best games ever made and the worst. I've played all of the Half-Life games that don't require a $1,000 dust collector, and I have 4 hours in Bad Rats. I regret every decision in my life that led to that moment. I love some, quote, bad, unquote, games. I love Alpha Protocol. I mean, come on, the guns aren't that much worse than they are in Deus Ex, which was only 10 years old at that point. I loved Xenoclash 2, and it got a 61 on Metacritic, which is basically an F if you're video games. I thought it was one of the most compelling stories in the world at the time when I played it. Back in 2014. That was also 10 years. I'm getting old. And back when I played it years ago, I also really enjoyed XCOM The Bureau. I've not played it since then, and I don't know when that was, but I had fun. I've also disliked some quote-unquote good games. Counter-Strike sucks. Mass Effect drops you in the middle of a massive space station and expects you to find out how to get back to your ship. And I did after only a few hours of wandering around, and then it has the testicles to make me do a vehicle mission. Consider yourself uninstalled. I thought Hades was the worst game that Supergiant has ever made, and I'm upset by the fact that they're making a sequel instead of a new IP. Please do not turn off the video. I actually need you to watch this so I don't starve to death. I actually did quit my job. That wasn't a joke. I like Hades. It's an 8 out of 10. It's just every other game they've made is more compelling and is more suited to my personal tastes in games. And maybe it's because I only beat it once. I didn't go and continue all the other beating it cycles. So I don't know how much content I'm missing out on. I know I didn't finish the romancing. I didn't finish that musician guy's quest. Yeah. Maybe my opinion will change one day. That's unlikely. I also disliked Limbo. It's not related at all. I just didn't like it. Great vibes. My full review of Limbo is that is the greatest demo I have ever played. Where was I? Demon's Souls, however, got an 89% on Metacritic, and it sucks. But that's not really the whole of it. Let me just say, I think this game's a 10 out of 10. I just also hate it, and it is equally a 0 out of 10, and those are little things that just exist at the same time with it. If this is cognitive dissonance, I'm okay with that. If you are someone who's never heard of Demon's Souls, let me give you a bit of a background. Demon's Souls lets you progress at your own pace. First, you do have to beat 1-1, and after that, all of the other worlds are open to you. Except the second half of World 1, 1-3 and 1-4 only unlock after you have cleared one of the other worlds. This is different than how other Souls games use interconnected worlds that gate progress behind other bosses. Since this one just has 5 distinct areas, you can do them in any order you want. Do I like this better? I don't know. I do think it lets the worlds have more variety, and I do think it solves the backtracking problem that plagues Dark Souls. To beat a level, you have to progress from the starting point, and then get to the boss and kill it. However, when you die, any XP you have gained is lost unless you're able to make it back to the place you died and retrieve it. Something that makes it harder to retrieve your lost XP is that every enemy you have killed has now respawned, and you have lost every healing item that you have used on your way there, or any other consumable for that matter. A few enemies will drop healing items, so if you're good enough, you should be keeping at a steady amount, not dropping too much below where you started. Sometimes you can even make a profit on healing items. Levels will also sometimes have a shortcut so that you'll be able to progress a bit further than you had with less distance. When you start the game, you are unable to level up your character. To be allowed to level up, you do have to defeat the first boss. This task Definitely wasn't easy for me the first time through, however. Demon Souls pioneered a lot of the trends that get credited to Dark Souls 1. It is also often considered the first Soulsborne game. If you don't know what that means, it means any game developed by From Software known for difficulty and weighty, punishing combat. Most of them also include a creative element of online multiplayer. They are also sometimes considered the next evolution of the King's Field franchise. If you don't know about these games, I recommend just picking up Elden Ring and giving it a shot, and you'll probably enjoy it if you go in completely blind, other than knowing you need a lot of patience. If you still don't know what these games are, they're difficult games with swords in them. As mentioned, Demon Souls was the first in this loose franchise, but this is before the Estus healing method in Dark Souls 1 had been decided on as the main form of healing, before they knew how to make more than 2 good boss fights, and before they decided to remove weapon degradation. Demon Souls was also an innovator in the online gaming scene by allowing players to leave messages for other players. Players could also see ghosts wandering around, either falling into traps or discovering items. And if you were a bad person, you could invade other players and attempt to kill them for money. For a while now, the PS3 edition servers have been shut down, and all of those notes and bloodstains are gone. It is now almost impossible to raise your world tendency in the game. I will not explain to you what world tendency is. I think the game is made worse by the servers shutting down. Without the notes, how would you know that you have to kill that guy in 3-1, short of just blindly stumbling into him, killing him, and then not knowing that you even did anything that would affect the boss fight? And if you don't do that, you just can't defeat the boss. She will just heal up to full health every time you kill her. Demon Souls was definitely ahead of its time, and I did actually manage to play it when the servers were still up, but I didn't make it very far. I don't really have any insight about what it was like to play online, so my review's only about the current state of the game in offline mode. My first time playing Demon Souls, I was a mage of some variety. I knew that dying was bad and made the game harder, but I didn't really know what that actually meant. So after a long time of failing to make it to the first boss, I just started a new save. Second time, I threw myself against the meat grinder that is the Red Eye Knight. I ran out of healing before the first boss, and instead of farming, I started a new character. It's easier. Third time, I got through the level, I beat the first boss, continued forward, and died by a dragon. I lost all of my souls and all of the progress that I had made. I strongly believe the game should warp you back to the starting area to let you know you've opened up new areas and can now spend the souls on stuff other than just random items that aren't helpful at all. I don't care what the game developer thinks. He's wrong. It should teleport you back. I don't care if it hinders speedrunners or breaks immersion. They should do it. Because I lost all of my levels to the dragon, I was now underleveled and I hated it. I don't grind in games, so I just suffered. After struggling with the dragon, I went to 2-1. I hate it just as much. The dogs there are brutal to a new player, and often my weapon would just clank against the wall. I just randomly decided I'm not even going to bother with World 3, and went to World 4. Rolling skeletons that damage you on touch with the longest duration of a hitbox are bad game design. I didn't even ever make it up the stairs. So I went back to the dragon level, finally got past, fought the tower knight, but I had a rapier equipped, and none of my attacks would connect once he fell over. I gave up. And years passed. A lot of years passed. Honestly, it probably was close to 9 years, and during these years, I described the game as the best mechanics in the shittiest game. I loved how equipment was handled. I loved the 2-weapon setup, as well as the ability to switch into two-handing a weapon. I liked all of the pieces, but the bullshit was too much for me to let it slide. On March 29th, 2022, at 12:08 p.m., I bought Elden Ring. And then I downloaded Elden Ring. And I played it for 90 minutes, just to make sure I didn't extend past the Steam refund time, and at the end of those 90 minutes, at 2:39 p.m., I refunded it. It wasn't for me. At 3:49 p.m., I received an email saying that my refund was processed. But before that happened, while I was waiting for that refund to go through, a voice said something to me, and it said, "You should set your Steam to be offline so that when it refunds, it won't stop you from playing, because it won't be able to detect that you are now no longer an owner of the game." And I listened. Then, after a while of being unable to stop thinking about the game, I relaunched it. Exactly 4 hours and 18 minutes had passed since I had refunded the game. On April 1st, 11:55 a.m., I bought it again. And on April 20th, 10:38 a.m., I beat it. And in 2023, I bought Dark Souls 1 and beat it 15 days later. I'd give you the dates, but you don't care. So now I figured it was finally time to return to Demon's Souls. It is never time to return to Demon's Souls, but I'd be damned if I let that stop me. For the 4th time in Demon's Souls, I picked Barbarian. I skipped the intro cutscene. I played the tutorial. I healed during the tutorial, even though you cannot die during the tutorial. I didn't even try to fight the boss because I value my time. I suffered through World 1-1. It would be a great level, but my controller was dying, and detecting false readings, this led to a lot of unnecessary deaths. But still, I knew I could beat World 1-1. I beat Elden Ring at launch, only summoning online help once against the Elden Beast because it was fucking awful as a strength build at launch. I haven't followed the meta. I don't know if things have changed since then. It's maybe gotten easier, maybe gotten harder. I don't care. I beat Dark Souls 1 without summoning anyone ever, or ever using magic besides Power Within, because who isn't going to use Power Within? I got through 1-1 and decided to try 3-1. I'd never seen that level before and figured it might be worth checking out. How had I not heard anyone talking about this level? Maybe it's because I don't watch Souls channels, so that's probably why. Dark Souls 1 didn't grab me. Dark Souls 3 didn't grab me either, but that's besides the point because I didn't play it till after playing Demon's Souls. I just thought I'd let you know. When playing Dark Souls 1, my thoughts were, okay, this is cool, but it's not my favorite game of all time. And occasionally, that spear charge is fucking bullshit. He already came to a complete stop. And one, wow, Sen's Fortress might be the best level ever designed, but instead they hid the bonfire way out of the way. But Demon's Souls had me thinking something else. That being, I fucking hate this game. It's bullshit, 0 out of 10. Unless I was in Worlds 1, excluding -2, 3, and 5. Yes, I too am shocked I liked a swamp level. I liked Proto Blighttown more than I liked Blighttown, and I liked Blighttown. I do not care if an enemy not respawning breaks the lore. You cannot get me to read an item description, even if you gave me souls for doing so, and I am talking about the IRL kind. I never died in 5-2. It was my first time in that level. I hadn't looked at a guide. I went into this game fully blind, so I don't know how I managed to do that. Yeah, I beat it first try and the boss too, but then again, who would die at Dirty Colossus? Probably someone who'd die at Adjudicator. 5-2's swamp felt hostile. The game takes away your ability to roll when you're in the muck, and the first time I went to dodge an attack, and instead my character just froze in place, made me realize I need to not play this game like a Soulsborne, but like a janky PS2 horror game that got a 6 out of 10. And horror games tend to be kind of clunky and not power fantasies. So, hey, you know what? Believe that if you need to. I found it makes the game a smidge more tolerable. Elden Ring taught me that if I was failing, to just go somewhere else and find something to help you moving forwards. There are two items that mainly provide that function. During my suffering through 4-1, I got the healing shield and the healing ring. And while I never just sat there waiting for my health to return to full, it encouraged me to keep moving. It's honestly great game design to give a character passive healing when healing, especially at the beginning, is so scarce. I know hardcore Souls fans think that these healing items are bad design, but I think you need to shut the fuck up and listen to what our Lord and Savior Miyazaki has to say. Poser. I know people don't like the limited healing system in this game, and early game, I was often running low, and I would kind of agree. But since I never went grinding for levels, I never found myself overstocked until the last fight, when I realized I had never ever set new Grune Mass in my hotbar. And so I only used it for the entirety of the fight, downing it like a hungry toddler with a box of goldfish crackers. I don't farm in Souls games. I hate farming and refuse to do it. You heard me, rural America. Fuck you. Tower of Latria's Super Metroidvania Symphony of the Night-esque level design, haunting atmosphere, and nightmarish enemies kissed me on the lips, and while I didn't ask it to, I wasn't mad. Beyond the atmosphere, why is Tower of Latria so good? That is a question I didn't quite know how to put into words, so I started the game a fifth time. Tower of Latria is good because you make progress. That's it. Your progress feels substantial. You're constantly getting keys that unlock new items and send you down wholly new paths. So without requiring a lot of backtracking, it still is able to feel huge and not too big that it feels a hassle to traverse. And the enemies, while certainly tough, can almost instantly be killed with a backstab, meaning that if you play it smart, you won't have that bad of a time, especially if you have the Thief Ring equipped. Just ignore that Sorcerer Sellen cosplayer in the basement. They don't drop anything, it's not worth it, so just leave it. I know I'm in the stuff I liked portion, but let me complain once again. The fact that the enemies in Latria don't drop healing items sucks. And that means that if you're a new player, you will likely have to just leave and go to a different world and hope to gather some, or just farm souls to get more healing items. If you at least pick one of the mini classes that starts with a healing spell, this shouldn't be an issue, as you probably have like 2 free heals per life. But if you start as Barbarian, I mean, you kind of brought this on yourself. You knew what you were doing, right? If you can, beat World 4-1. You can definitely beat the Adjudicator, and then whenever you run low on healing, kill that Grim Reaper motherfucker at the start of 4-2 for a lot of souls, and then use those souls to buy more healing. If you can get into the castle of 4-1, you can run to the boss fight gate. Just don't even think about trying to run past the skeletons on the hill, even with the Thief Ring. If you manage to do it, quit out. There's no shame in it. Just quit out when you're at the top of the hill. They won't be following you when you load back in. It's okay. We've all done it every once in a while. Once I got to the second part of Tower of Latria, I was just as impressed. The quality does not drop at all. You scale vast architecture and then descend into a blood swamp and fight these horrifying things that break into smaller things. I love this level. I like all of Tower of Latria more than I like any single part in Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 3. I haven't played Bloodborne beyond the Cleric Beast, and that was only at a friend's house, so I can't say I like it more than Bloodborne, but I can't say I like Bloodborne more than it either. And the Man-Eaters are often listed as one of the hardest bosses in the game, or the most broken, or sometimes one of the best. And I'll just go on the record and say I like the fight. The AI didn't break on me, so I mostly had a good time. I also realized the center of the arena is larger, so I stayed there to fight, as it made sense, because otherwise, when you're fighting in a narrow pathway, gravity's going to win. It also has the best NPC in the game. I love Yurt. He is the coolest NPC in the game. You do not want to be missing out on his questline, but he can have a habit of falling to his death, so just make sure he doesn't die. If the feeling of progress is what makes Latria so good, then let's look at some things. Of the good levels in this game, 1-1, 1-3, 3-1, 3-2, 5-2 all have shortcuts. The only good levels without shortcuts are 4-1 and 5-1. Yes, I say 4-1 is a good level, even though I earlier said it has horrible game design with the rolling skeletons. That's only until you realize that using a shield is okay, and everyone online who says that using a shield is bad can just shove it up their ass because they don't affect you. They're not real people. They're internet people who don't have any effect on your life. So who cares what they think? The bad levels, 1-2, 2-1, 2-2, and 4-2, of those, 2-1 is the only one with a shortcut. As far as the mid-levels go, 4-1 does not have a shortcut unless you're playing on PS5, where they added one in. So I guess that's cool. By looking at this objective mathematical analysis, we can see that the majority of good levels have shortcuts, and the majority of bad levels do not have shortcuts. 2-1 does have a shortcut, but it only puts you halfway closer, and both it and its boss suck. 2-2 does have an alternate path, but it's not an unlockable shortcut, so I'm not counting it. It too sucks. 1-1's level design is great. It has enough shortcuts to make you feel like you're making progress the whole time while still being difficult. Actually, it only has one shortcut. Now, you might be saying there's a shortcut at the end of the level, but it's not a shortcut, it's a pathway back to the Dragon Ridge. You unlock the shortcut after you've already unlocked the boss, so it doesn't count. It's surprising how much of an impact one shortcut can make. If I could just change one thing with this level while I'm talking about the things I like, I would remove the Red-Eyed Knight and set him in World 1-2. He can one-shot pretty high-level players, and most likely you won't have the key you need, and if you're me, that someone with the key will disappear from the game, and then won't drop when they decide to roll off the cliff in the final confrontation. And then you can't get it until New Game Plus. And New Game Plus isn't the victory lap that Dark Souls 1 told you it would be. Dark Souls 1 is a liar. I think I liked World 5 because it forces you to use everything you have. The levels, not the bosses. You'll want to draw aggro from small enemies so that you can face the big guys alone. You can't just run past every enemy you see. You'll have to kill them, otherwise you'll get caught with enemies on both sides on narrow walkways. You have to be aware of your footing on narrow paths and steep cliffs. And I'm okay with the boss being easy because any World 1 boss is easy if you fight it last. If you think Leechmonger is easy, I'm sorry, you're playing the game wrong. Fight it first. So I learned from my job experience in HR that if you want to shit talk professionally, you have to sandwich that shit talk between two compliments no matter how vague they are. Anyways, we're done with the good stuff for a while now about Demon Souls. The entirety of World 2 is dog shit. It's a slog to get through if you aren't using the right weapons, and Armor Spider is the worst boss in any Souls game. It doesn't explain what you need to do. Like, that fire sure looks like it engulfs the entire area. How am I supposed to know that the far back wall is actually safe? You might scream at me, trial and error, but still, fuck you. I tanked that flame attack with the flame resistance shield because I'm better than that. And the bear bugs in 2-2 are the easiest enemies in the game, with the largest hitboxes and health bars. Whoever designed them needs a bear hug. Oh, that's a terrible line, I should cut that. And that big dragon fuck boss? Only not the worst boss in the game because Armor Spider exists. The only good thing in World 2 is Flame Lurker, who I killed on my first attempt. Oh, and because of that, I never even tried the alternate path. Yeah, and I beat the Man-Eater's second attempt once I knew not to stand by the ledges. I guess I'm good at these games? I'm not someone who goes out of his way for difficult games. I do like some difficult games, but I like them more because of how they balance mechanics and force you to engage with systems. Okay, let's just, to understand my opinion, go over my list of top games. And currently, it looks like this. For narrative, more experienced games, Outer Wilds, Kentucky Route Zero, Klonoa, Door to Phantomile, Klonoa 2, Lunetia's Veil, Pentiment, Knit Underground, Pyre, Transistor, Pillars of Eternity, with DLC, Fallout New Vegas, Wolfenstein, The New Order, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. For mechanical-focused games, Far Cry 2, SSX 3, Deus Ex, Elden Ring, Dusk, The Witness, Fallout 4 Survival Mode, Quake 2, Sonic Mania, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine, Super Hot VR, Burnout 3. I will not compile them together, and I will not apologize for liking The Witness. I did previously have BioShock Infinite on my best games list, but I haven't played it since that first time, and with public opinion having changed on it that much, I don't want my own to, so I'm not going to replay it, and I'm also not going to put it on that list. That said, that torture sequence in Burial at Sea Part 2 is maybe one of the best moments in any video game ever. I've never felt more like looking away and more incapable of doing that, and I will not apologize. Oh, and while I have your attention, Far Cry 2 is is the best Souls-like. And let's just list out a few things that are in Souls-like games. Weapon durability. Repeating cycles of violence without making any progress. Only saving and solidifying your progress at specific locations. Limited healing. An optional buddy summon system. Limited stamina makes you plan out your actions. You can die in seconds if you're caught off guard. Combat that forces you to react to unexpected situations. Fast travel, but only in select spaces to select spaces. Progression is more about your knowledge and equipment over your own character progression. In fact, Far Cry 2 could be argued to be more like Dark Souls than Dark Souls because it doesn't let you level up. Moving on, I don't know if this is the best place for this information, but this is the order I defeated the bosses. First, Phalanx. Second, Armor Spider. Third, Tower Knight. Fourth, Fool's Idol. Fifth, Adjudicator. Sixth, Leechmonger. Seventh, Dirty Colossus. Eighth, Maiden Astrier. Cheesed her. Fuck the babies. Ninth, Penetrator. Hardly newer. 10th, Flame Lurker. Hardly newer. 11th, Maneater. Hardly newer. 12th, Old Monk. Offline. 13th, Dragon God. Shit. 14th, Old Hero. Thief Ring. 15th, Storm King. 16th, Old King Allant. 17th, True King Allant. Go ahead. Complain that I played this game in the wrong order, or I cheated myself by using a shield for the rolling skeletons, but unlike you Soul Level 1 assholes, I'm not looking up a fucking guide. Play the next Souls game Soul Level 1 for your first playthrough without a guide, and then come complain here. I will enjoy the sudden resurgence of views, and knowing that someone hates me so much that they remembered me for all those years. I want people to know I actually do like the Souls community. After beating Demon Souls, I started watching people like Baron's Castle, Lil Aggie, JK Leeds, and hi, this is Lemon from the Backlogs. All lovely people that don't make me want to turn over my I've played video games since birth card. Note to self, delete this if any of them get cancelled. I don't think I was meant to read that out loud. Shout out to my dad for making me play Sonic 1. I have no memory of the first time I played Sonic 1 because I was playing Sonic 1 before I was forming memories. Shout out to my brother for getting too scared of the Tomb Raider's dinosaur and therefore preventing me from playing the game. If he hadn't had nightmares because of that dinosaur, I would be an archaeologist right now and not about to get kicked out of my apartment because I can't keep a stable job. While World 4-1 is what I would call a good level, World 4-2 is not. Where 4-1 has the crow, I love the crow. I just want to say I love the crow. I didn't even know there was a crow in Dark Souls until after beating Demon Souls. I know it's a hawk, but it's still a crow. Where 4-1 has the crow, 4-2 has stingrays that are nearly impossible to snipe with a bow at any location. I was unable to ever consistently kill them, and I only made it to the Old Hero twice. The first time, I killed every enemy the way there. The second, I ran like hell. You cannot ever convince me that it's not the case that the only reason a 5k soul drop right at the start of 4-1 is because they have sympathy for you, having already lost all of your healing items and arrows in attempt to clear this level. Oh, I forgot to mention, item burden. This game has both Dark Souls equipment load and Skyrim max carrying capacity. Look, this game has a lot of mechanics, and a lot of mechanics that Dark Souls 1 thought to do away with, and maybe for good reason. Sometimes I wonder if Miyazaki made this game for outsiders, or if he just thought, yeah, everyone is like me, they'll eat this slop up. I don't know how, but he was right. Motherfucker. And I don't mean that as an insult. I've been listening to weird music long enough that I can't even tell what is vaguely listenable these days. Ask any of my friends. They're mad at me. My playthrough of Demon's Souls clocked in at 21 hours and 55 minutes. Since you cannot pause, there were a few bathroom breaks where I left the game running, and my bladder can hold a lot of piss. Video game website How Long to Beat says it takes about 28 hours for a first-time playthrough on PS3. PS4 edition says it takes only 23 hours. Though, the PS5 version gives you a ring to walk through the swamps at a normal pace and also roll. Souls games aren't hard. That's a hill I'm gonna die on. Someone's gonna kill me for that. Anyone could beat Soul of Cinder if you attack him once and then run away, but that's not fun. The difficulty comes from playing suboptimally. It comes from not letting yourself optimize the fun out of an experience. Is that the Sid Meier quote? Even my mom could beat the Nameless King if I gave her the crossbow. The games just have a language that a lot of other games don't speak. So when you start playing one, it can be very difficult to learn, but once you catch on, it's extremely manageable. And then every subsequent game is that much easier. If someone tells you they beat Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, tell them to see a therapist. Persistence is cool and all, but it's a fucking video game. I've watched A Brighter Summer's Day. You don't see me going around saying, I've watched the hardest film there is. It's 4 hours long. It has child violence. Because film snobs are a piece of shit in their own right. You heard me, film snobs. You're next. Let me detour really quickly and just talk about game language. Every game you've ever played, well, maybe not Space War if you've played Space War, is built on a foundation of previous games. Either because good games spawned clones, or because a bad game inspired someone else to try to do it better. So while Souls games get easier as you play them, gets thrown around, it's just true about all video games. Most games assume you have played other games. They use a mouse to aim, because Doom without a mouse was a lot worse. They don't need to explain why number go up is better, because you know you like big number. It gives brain happy chemical. Most shooter games won't tell you to take cover when you're getting shot because you know you want to break line of sight because that's what every other game has you do. Gears of War tells you press square to take cover, and you already knew to do that. Games don't need to explain why the right analog stick is what you aim with instead of the left stick, because that's just what it is. The R buttons are always going to be more used than the L buttons, and maybe that's just because left-handed people deserve it. So while just play one Souls game and they all make sense might seem like a cop-out, if you've ever bounced off of one of them, it's just because that's how learning works. Please do not start with Demon's Souls. I imagine playing any sport, even golf, would probably make you better at any subsequent sport. So that's just how game language works. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah, difficulty. Difficulty is part actual challenge and part learning the skills. You might crush it at Returnal and just not understand T-spinning in Tetris. The reason why Souls games come across as difficult is because they do not teach you the skills you need. And now you're probably screaming at me because I'm saying a Souls game doesn't teach you, and you aren't fully wrong to feel that way. I see you. I recognize your pain. Demon's Souls does tell you that world tendency exists, but it doesn't really tell you what causes it. I've read the booklet. I own a physical copy. Don't fuck with me, okay? If you start as a knight, you'll fat roll, but it won't tell you why it feels so bad to dodge. Demon's Souls doesn't teach you really what each of the stats mean or how it's really going to affect you other than a spreadsheet. And who likes spreadsheets? I worked in accounting and I don't like spreadsheets. The games tell you you can parry, but they don't tell you really how to parry other than try it out against this random knight who you can't die against because your health can't go below 1 in the tutorial. Or like when you can parry, or even who can be parried, because most people can't be parried, but it's going around telling you, yeah, you should have a shield to parry, but you can't do that most of the time. So while I have said that the Dark Souls games are not hard, that's because they're cheap. And now I've pissed off everyone else who's watching this video. I actively wanted to hurt something, maybe the designer of the level, when I was playing 4-2. If you try to say, Souls games are great because all the deaths are fair, you're in an abusive relationship and you need to seek a dominatrix. If you are a dominatrix, I can already guess correctly that you only play the Souls games for the PvP. A lot of deaths are the fault of the player, but a lot of the hitboxes can also just go through walls or extend past the weapon, and there's also just a lot of PS3 jank. Gravity makes no sense. Trying to board the moving elevators in World 2-1 is nearly impossible without falling to your death at least once. Also, sometimes in my experience while playing Demon's Souls and Dark Souls 1, when I'm rolling, I'll just randomly roll in the exact opposite direction, and I don't know why that happens. The only reason why I tried World 5 was because I was so tired of World 4-2. I hated 4-2 so much, I debated quitting the game a 4th time. So after beating my head against a wall repeatedly, I figured, fuck it, I'll try the one world I've left to attempt. I, again, was going in blind, I didn't know anything about it, so I jumped into World 5-1 and was mad at the game the whole time. The toxic effect is bullshit, or I guess it's called plague in this one, or there's toxic and plague and poison, I don't know. But I died less than 4 times in there. Like, I hated this game almost every minute of it, but 5-1 after 4-2 diffused me? That's a wild thing to say about World 5 from everything I've heard about people talking about World 5. Demon's Souls' ability to let me go somewhere else, let me feel that Souls hit of a cigarette relief after I need a cigarette, because I intentionally got myself addicted to cigarettes because quitting is hard and I need more challenge in my life when I was struggling to get a fix. 5-2 was tense, especially the moments when I'd try to run only for the input to read as a roll, and I watch my character freeze in place while a 12-foot tall Home Depot skeleton goblin ass motherfuck walks over to me ready to kill me were anxiety inducing. But I survived that level and it felt great. It wasn't until I unlocked the shortcut that I realized I was in body form the whole time? Maybe great isn't the right word. Maybe 5-2 was fine for me because I'd gained a lot of lotuses from the other worlds, but I don't imagine most people are like starting in World 5 and gonna not have them, especially because the soldiers are dropping them earlier on in World 1. Again, this was my boss 6, 7, 8, and I didn't leave World 5 to try a different world. I didn't commit that hard to any other world in this game. In retrospect, I probably should have gone to 3-2 instead of 5-1, but I had heard that the boss there was awful. While I had gone in blind, I had seen like a review or two, and I knew that some people hated that boss. And I wasn't ready to hate the one area of the game I actually loved. I never hated World 3. My build for this playthrough was the Bastard Sword, with a fireproof great shield for the Dragon Bridge and World 2, and then after I got the Adjudicator shield, I would just keep that one on my back. For the most part, I didn't use a shield, but I left the option open and did use it in all of World 4. I also used the Secret Dagger for quick damage against weaker enemies, and then by the end of the game, I was using it as my main weapon. Its R1 spam is a higher DPS than the Bastard Sword, and it can stun lock way better. I also had a bow for drawing aggro, and I kept a poison knife on hand for the 2-2 bear bugs. Other than World 1-4, 4-2 was the last level I beat, and despite having leveled up throughout every other area, this one still gave me trouble. And so, yeah, when I got to the old hero, I used the Thief Ring and hated myself for not really getting to experience the fight, because I'm not going to go through that gauntlet ever again. Let me give you a quick breakdown of how I, a professional game reviewer as of today, would suggest you progress through this game. Step 1. Pick a class that isn't Wanderer or Knight. Step 2. Make sure you don't fat roll. Step 3. Play the game. Steps 4 through 12. Make sure you collect the smithing stones down at the bottom of the stairs of 1-1. And once you've found a weapon that works for you, see what stones that weapon uses by talking to the blacksmith. If you've picked the rapier as the weapon that works for you, pick a Gan. It sucks. Then go to 2-1 and kill the lizard miners who are holding bags, as they will drop smithing stones to help you upgrade your weapon. Pray to God that you can kill the crystal lizard, and then when you fail, curse him. Then, crack open your Phalanx boss soul that you got from defeating Phalanx, and spend all of that buying smithing stones from the filthy man at the start of the level. You should be able to get your weapon to about level 3 or 4, and you should have a way better time now going through 4-1, then progress through 4-1 to get the Regenerator's Ring and the Adjudicator Shield. And if you can get those, you can definitely get the rest of the way through and defeat the Adjudicator. And also, if you have saved a Strava and you know how trading works in Demon's Souls, which apparently I don't, you can trade that with the Crow for a magic regeneration ring, if you didn't start as royalty, who automatically starts out with it. You will never use the telescope, so this is a good deal. Once you have those things set up, explore any of the -1s. And once you start getting mad, go somewhere else. See what you can gather to help you explore the rest of your journey. And don't treat these levels as things to be cleared all in one go. Just take them as places to visit and gather resources. And if you have to, just clear out 1-1 for some healing items. The Blue-Eyed Knights should be really easy at this point, and they do drop 2 healing items each. Look, there's no shame in going for healing items. I know I said I don't grind or farm, but I did have to do that once during this playthrough. And look, we can't all be God gamers. If they wanted us to all be God gamers, they would have released Demon's Souls on PC. With this guide, you should now have a pretty okay time. Perhaps World 2 is actually just meant to suck. Like, the level design is so disjointed, maybe the developer wants you to treat it as a place that you just traverse for resources. In fact, a lot of the levels just provide resources you need for a different level. And honestly, a thing supporting this argument is the fact that none of the enemies in World 2-2 actually pose a threat. The bear bugs don't attack you at any speed to pose a threat. The worms don't move. The miners basically ignore you if you ignore them. And then the only thing against you would be the Black Phantoms and the Fat Official. And you can run past those guys pretty easily. World 2 is not an area to be played, but a 9 to 5 to clock in and out of. Perhaps I would have liked World 2 a lot better if there were notes left from the other players, but I don't know that, and I can't experience that anymore. So while I've said that there are more good levels than bad levels, then why can't I answer why I hated this game so much? Is it just the jank? But I like jank. And if I hated it so much, why can't I stop thinking about it? Does Demon's Souls have the most compelling lore? Well, I read 0 item descriptions, and I just looked at stats for weapons and moved on. If I wanted to read a book, I'd play Pentiment, nerd. But I was able to understand a lot of the lore just through the level and enemy design. A lot more than just with Dark Souls. And maybe the cutscenes in this game do help give a bit more context. And when then you fight 3 NPCs who appear very similar to the previous 3 bosses of that world, it lets you know something's wrong with this place. What lore have you picked up from the walk from Firelink to the Bell Gargoyles without reading any text? Other than zombies? Dragon Wyvern? Guy who sells things, and another guy who hits me with weird weapon and kills me instantly. And also there's a guy in a cage, I guess, for some reason, and you don't really know why either. There's a lot of just questions without anything else on the walk to the Bell Gargoyles. But Boletaria Palace is different. It feels prepared for an invasion, with all their defenses being out, all of their armies set up. This place is ready for an attack. Actively. This isn't some place that fell into disrepair years ago. This is a place that is fortified and ready for violence. The destruction being recent makes you feel like you're working towards a specific goal, but I didn't really know why I was doing anything in Dark Souls 1, and so I picked the maybe bad, maybe good ending instead, and I didn't do that in Demon Souls because I knew my blind and barefoot girlfriend would not love me if I picked the bad ending, because she'd be dead. You don't need to read text to know you want to avoid the Tower of Latria, and to know that the people are getting turned into things, whereas Seath's castle just has squid people, and I guess if you read the text, the squid people were previously normal people who he wanted to fuck. I think that's what that one guy said in that lore video that was sent to me about Havel. I think that's what it was. I don't remember. Dark Souls is weird. It had some cool lore, but I didn't pick any of it up by playing the game. You don't need to read text to know you want to avoid the Tower of Latria. You don't need to read text to know that these prisoners are now working for their captors, and to know that that's a heart that is made out of people, and it's spewing out spider things. I don't want to be here. Maybe the Nexus is why I like Demon Souls more than Dark Souls, because Dark Souls has a bonfire that lets you do everything, but Demon Souls' Nexus gives you a sense of camaraderie with the people here, these other people that are trapped here and trying to survive, and maybe that helps? I also like this Crestfallen Warrior a lot more. I think he's meant to be a previous player who gave up on the game and no longer is going to revive when he dies because the maiden has decided he's not worth it and now you are. Which again makes her have a character depth. Like, the person you level up through now has become a character who you can tell has an agenda and doesn't really necessarily care that much about you. And I like that. Like, I like that this person's a character. The Firekeeper of the main bonfire in Dark Souls 1, I don't care about them. I cared when they died because I can't go back there, and I hate that, but I don't care for them. I don't know anything about them. Dark Souls never feels anywhere near as oppressive as Demon Souls. The enemies of Demon Souls feel corrupted and like their humanity has been twisted in an unrecognizable way, and it's affecting everyone. Both of the blacksmiths who level up your weapons are also turning into the same lizard people you kill in World 2. You can see it in their hands during the loading screen, and that's worrying. I don't know if the rolling skeletons are meant to have any human resemblance. I hate them either way. I love the design of the fat officials because you can't tell if that's their face or if it's a mask they're wearing. And also, wow, I want to kill them. They suck. Then in World 5, you have all these defiled people and those blood babies. And that's horror in a way that Dark Souls isn't. Demon Souls has vibes. Dark Souls has lore. And I like lore a lot less than I like vibes. Is that really the video? all of that build-up for, I like the vibes, dude. Sure, some of those vibes are accompanied by Demon Souls' trademarked fart music. Just listen to the Dirty Colossus soundtrack. But for the most part, it's just ambient background noise. And the only non-boss fight music I can remember is Diegetic from The Singing Woman. Oh, and I really love the true final boss fight in this game, even more than I like the fight with Gwyn. I think having the two-part fight between false King Allant and true King Allant gives you both the mechanical fight that you get from Gwyn, but also then the reveal of how much of a husk they are as well, by making it just a slug that you attack, and it can't even hurt you, really, unless you are really bad. I love that. I think that is amazing design. And then Gwyn is difficult, so he doesn't feel as much of a husk, even if the pling pling plong music makes you think he should be. Again, pling pling plong is so good. That is actually the most impactful moment for me in Dark Souls. It's the only moment that really sticks out in my memory positively. And again, Gwyn, though, can be kind of easy if you know how to parry him, which kind of then undercuts the difficulty of it, so you don't really get much of anything. I parried him. I suck at parrying, and I parried him. I don't know if this helps my argument or not. And then this game also just has this otherworldly aspect to it that's stunning. I want more of that final zone. You know what, Miyazaki? Make your next game have a 20-minute walking segment where it doesn't end with a boss fight. Because your worlds are cool, and I want to experience them without something trying to rip my flesh off. You know what? Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, and Dark Souls 3, area before the boss, are the coolest areas they have ever designed. And it's a shame that you don't really do anything in any of those places other than go and fight the boss. Honestly, if I played the PS5 remake, I probably would have just given this game a 4 out of 10, because while it fixes a lot of the issues, like the armor spider, bringing the game up quite a few points, Tower of Latria is so unimaginably, unrecognizably, brutally destroyed by the addition of non-diegetic music that I never would have actually gone through and beaten the game. I just would have disconnected. I never, therefore, would have experienced Dragon God or 4-2, so it would have gotten a few more points because I wouldn't have known how bad it gets. People are going to think I have ADHD because of how all over the place this is. I promise you, I don't have a diagnosis for ADHD, or a diagnosis of anything for that matter. Should I get one? Let me know in the comments. I feel like I really lost the plot here. I think I was meant to say something about how the good and bad parts compete and complement each other. Or something? I don't know. This game confuses me, and maybe now you too are confused. I wanted to end the video right there, but everyone I talked to said it needed more of a conclusion. This game was ahead of its time, so that's probably why it got great reviews, but I didn't play it until recently. So why am I okay with it being great and swear at the TV levels of frustration? Honestly, I was hoping to answer that question by writing out this essay. This game has been stuck in my head since I played it that very first time about 9 years ago, and since that time I wondered what it would be like if it was actually good. And Elden Ring answered that for me, but besides Godwin, didn't really stick in my head. Dark Souls 1 I beat in 15 days and then didn't really think about again. But Demon Souls lingers. I've been working on this video essay since I beat it, and that was a while ago. And this game gave me headaches, by the way, like actual migraine-ish headaches without the vomiting, but I kept playing through it. Like, if I played the game more than 2 hours, I would get a bad headache, and I would keep playing through it because this game had sucked me in a way that no other game had. So, like, I liked this game as much as I hated it while playing it, there was something that compelled me, despite all of those issues, that if I can hate the game, have a headache, and do that, that's something, right? What little I've been able to piece together about the story is that this is some illusional version of the reality that's going on. If I'm wrong, don't correct me. I don't care. And look, this game isn't a 0 out of 10 with 10 out of 10 vibes. It's both a 0 out of 10 for all the obtuse design and a 10 out of 10 for something? I can't tell you. I just like the vibes isn't really the full reason I liked the game. It's just the only concrete detail I can point to and make monkey noises at that you'll understand. Opening up this video with, the level design in Demon Souls is better than in Dark Souls 3 because of how often your weapon clinks against the walls, would get me put in the nut house. But I actually believe it. The game doesn't always want you to stand and fight. It wants you to find a better place that works for you. It wants you to have situational and locational awareness. The game is teaching you to reposition yourself. But if this was a logical argument, it would be proof by contradiction. Look, I know I've said earlier that Valley of Defilement is a good level. And while I do believe that, wow, any sentence begins with that, you know it's... I never had fun. Going a step further, I think I really only enjoyed playing 3 of the worlds? 1-1 on my 3rd and 4th playthrough, 4-1 on my 4th playthrough, and 3-2 again on my 4th playthrough. I found 3-1 to be the most compelling, but at that point in my playthrough, I had so few healing items that I wasn't really able to just relax and enjoy it. And you know what? Fuck it. If you like this game, you're not going to hate me anymore. Let me go on record and say, every boss, including the good ones, suck. Like, perhaps it's because the boss run backs are just such a commitment that you just don't want to play it in a way that's going to be fun and risky. It makes you play it turtled up, and that sucks. And Dark Souls doesn't have any run backs anywhere near as bad as Demon Souls, outside of maybe Lost Izalith, but I beat the Bed of Chaos my 3rd attempt, so it wasn't too upsetting. I'm not even kidding, like, when I beat a boss for the first time in Dark Souls 3, which is the worst Souls game, I'd feel a sense of accomplishment. Like, I just overcame an impossible task. But when I beat Tower Knight, it just felt like a crushing fucking finally. When I beat Flame Lurker, it felt like I had turned in a project to my boss 8 minutes before it was due. And I'd never turned a project in that close to being due at my actual job. So, beating bosses might not have been that cigarette hit that I had been saying it is. But when I beat the game, I wanted to go back in for a New Game Plus run. And that's the first time that has happened. Phalanx is actually hard in New Game Plus, by the way, so consider me surprised. I didn't die, but he was hard. I didn't really go that far in my New Game Plus playthrough. I've not defeated any bosses outside of Phalanx, and I did die to the Adjudicator in New Game Plus. I was not expecting him to kill me in one hit and figured I could take one, and I can't tank it. I want to play more of New Game Plus, but I just have too many other games to play. And, you know, at least I started it. And I didn't do that for any of the other Blood Darks. Actually, I still haven't even beaten Dark Souls 3. I got to the final boss, did 2 attempts, and thought, I get it. And I still want to play the DLC at some point. I did 4 attempts on Sister Fried, and she might be the best duo fight that they've ever designed. And Twin Princess is possibly the best boss fight they've ever done. The rush I got from defeating him is good enough that I would shoot it up if I could. I think I've rambled enough that I can see some sort of conclusion, so just, I guess, allow me to say some closing words. And this sounds stupid, so I'm sorry. Some people hate modern art. You can watch smarter people than me talk about how that hatred of modern art is proof that it is art, that is able to instill such a visceral reaction in someone shows how impactful it is, and therefore it's a valid work of art. Perhaps Demon Souls' 0 out of 10-ness is what makes it a 10 out of 10 for me? Like, maybe it's just because my favorite emotion is spite, and when I feel like Demon Souls is trying to push me, saying, give up, I know you will, that encouraged me even more to keep going? Or it's just because I'm stubborn, and I guess I have something to approve. Or it's just because I could take a different path when I got stuck. Or it's all of them. I love Demon Souls. It's nowhere near the list of my top games of all time, but most interesting games of all time? It's near the top of that one. Should you play this game if you haven't? I don't know. You'd probably bounce off of it like I did my first 3 times. I did show this game to a friend recently, and he's continued playing it off and on since then. That's cool. Who knows? You might like it just as much as you hate it. Do not use a rapier. Please do not make that mistake. Well, you've made it to the end of the video. Thank you. Maybe you watched it on double speed. I do that too, so no shame. Thank you for watching all of it. If you skip to the end, there's no funny jokes. You pass the conclusion, you need to go back a chapter. I'm hoping to put out a video like this once a month, but this one took a lot longer than I expected it to. I think I bit off a bit too much for this first video essay, and I'm happy how it turned out, but I definitely think the lighting could have been a lot better. Right now I'm not even using the light source I should, because I'm tired and I just want to get this thing done. I do hope the ending doesn't feel like a cop-out. Very few works of art feel equally repulsive and compelling, and that honestly might be one of my favorite types of art. Up there with kids media for adults, and by that I mean Joe Parra Talks With You, not Deadpool 3. I know I've said a lot of hot takes through this video as well. Some of them are genuine. Rest are just me joking around, but I'm not going to tell you which are which. I also want to give a thank you to anyone who read the script before I recorded this, or watched over this to help me finalize this and make sure this was semi-coherent. Also like to thank any friend of mine who were good at Souls games enough to make me, when I watch them, think, that doesn't look too hard. You planted the idea for me to return to this franchise, and thank you. I also was not joking either time I said I did quit my job to do this. So if you enjoyed this, please, genuinely, I'd love if you subscribed, liked, shared this with friends. If you didn't like it, hey, share it with an enemy. I think I'm done with editing this video. I just want to record this little credit scene and then render it and then see it all the way through. Very happy with how this turned out for my first video. I definitely know there's stuff I need to work out. I see a lot of the flaws in there, but I'm working on a old gaming laptop, so it's the best I got. Sometimes I'll hit play through DaVinci Resolve and it'll take 30 seconds before I can actually see the footage that's going on, so it's not great.